Every week, NFL defenses spend days preparing specifically for Lamar Jackson. Film study, defensive schemes, coverage disguises, and every single week, it is not enough. Not because Jackson is faster than everyone on the field, not because his arm is stronger than every defender he faces, but because by the time the ball is snapped, Lamar Jackson has already won the play, not during it, before it. The Baltimore Ravens run pre-snap motion at the highest rate of any team in the NFL. Not because of their scheme, because of one man's ability to read an entire defense, identify every coverage, predict every assignment in the 2 seconds before the ball moves. Defensive coordinators have spent years trying to hide their coverages from him. Nobody has solved it. And the reason why is more fascinating than anything you expected. Two-time NFL MVP, the most dangerous quarterback in professional football, and the most dangerous thing about him has nothing to do with his legs. It never did. November 25th, 2019, Baltimore Ravens versus Los Angeles Rams. Final score, 45-6. The Rams had one of the most sophisticated defensive systems in the NFL. It meant nothing. Before almost every single play, Jackson approached the line of scrimmage and did something that made their entire defensive scheme irrelevant. He read them completely, before the snap, before they moved, before they revealed anything. The Rams' head coach described watching Jackson that night as watching someone create conflict and confusion before the ball even moved. Not after, before. Jackson finished with 5 touchdowns, when the Rams had no answer, not because their scheme failed, but because Jackson had already solved it before it had a chance to work. That is what this video is actually about. Not the runs, not the arm. What happens in Jackson's mind before the ball moves? In 2018, 29 NFL teams looked at Lamar Jackson and passed. 4 quarterbacks were taken before him: Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen. Jackson fell to pick 32, the very last selection of the first round. The scouts had concerns: his throwing mechanics, his size, his transition from college to professional football. What the scouts missed, what 29 teams missed, was the same thing scouts have always missed about the greatest players in history, the thing that never shows up at a combine. When a reporter asked Jackson if falling to 32 gave him a chip on his shoulder, he didn't let the question finish. Absolutely, both shoulders. I'm not mad. It's just motivation. That motivation produced the single-season rushing record for any quarterback in NFL history: 1,206 yards in 2019, 2 unanimous MVP awards, the all-time record for career rushing yards by a quarterback, and a pre-snap reading ability that defensive coordinators across the league describe as something they have genuinely never seen before. Not better than others, something different entirely, because Jackson doesn't just read defenses before the snap. He solves them, before the ball moves, before they can hide, before they have a chance. Here is the specific mechanism nobody has fully explained. Before almost every single play, Jackson sends a player in motion across the line of scrimmage: a running back, a tight end, a receiver, moving, shifting, changing positions, and the defense is forced to react. That reaction tells Jackson everything he needs to know. If a defender follows the motion, man coverage, someone is locked to that player. If the defense shifts as a unit, zone coverage. They are protecting areas, not individuals. 2 completely different defensive structures, identified in the 2 seconds before the ball is snapped. The Ravens run pre-snap motion at a higher rate than any other team in the NFL, not because their coordinator designed a clever scheme, because Jackson processes what that motion reveals faster than any quarterback who has ever lined up under center. Jackson described it himself. Everything is slowing down, seeing all types of defenses, all types of blitzes. Everything is just second nature. Someone who was on the sideline during a Ravens game described watching Jackson at the line of scrimmage as witnessing something like a cheat code, an ability to identify coverages that reminded them of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning at their absolute peak. Not similar, the same level. before the ball moved, before the defense could hide. Jackson had already answered every question the defense was trying to keep secret. The proof arrived in 2019, Jackson's first full season as a starter. He did not just win the MVP, he won it unanimously, every single vote. But the number that defined that season was not a passing statistic. It was 1,206. 1,206 rushing yards, the single season record for any quarterback in NFL history. And in the same season, he threw for over 3,000 yards. The first quarterback in NFL history to rush for 1,000 yards and pass for 3,000 yards in the same season. Defenses had no answer. Then 2023 arrived, and Jackson was better. Week 17, Baltimore Ravens versus Miami Dolphins. Jackson threw 5 touchdown passes, final score, 56-10. He finished with a perfect passer rating of 158.3, the highest score possible. The Ravens went 13-4 that season. Jackson won his second unanimous MVP award. He became the all-time leader in career rushing yards by a quarterback, surpassing a record that had stood for decades. But here is what connects every dominant performance, every blowout, every perfect passer rating, every record broken. Jackson had already read the defense before the snap. The plays were won before they started, every single time. Here is how seriously NFL teams take the problem of Lamar Jackson. In 2019, the Pittsburgh Steelers flew in a quarterback from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 874 miles, specifically to mimic Jackson in practice for 3 days. Not a current NFL player, a former college quarterback who resembled Jackson's speed. 874 miles for 3 days of practice, because no player on the Steelers roster could adequately simulate what Jackson does before the ball moves. The San Francisco 49ers spent an entire week of film study in 2023 watching Jackson run. They built their entire defensive game plan around stopping the run. Jackson saw it before kickoff. He threw for 3 touchdowns and the Ravens won 33-19. When Nick Bosa, one of the greatest pass rushers in football, described watching Jackson adjust his entire playing style mid-game as something he had never seen before. The Steelers' defensive coordinator said it most clearly of all. When you enter a stadium where Lamar Jackson is playing, you assume he is always operating at 100%. If you underestimate that man, he said, you are doing that at your own risk. Myles Garrett, the most feared pass rusher in the NFL today, was asked which quarterback was the most difficult to sack. He did not hesitate. Lamar Jackson. It's not even close. Here is what the numbers actually mean together. 2 unanimous MVP awards, 22 wins against NFC opponents, 1 loss, the single-season rushing record for any quarterback in history, the all-time career rushing record for any quarterback in history, a pre-snap motion rate higher than any team in the NFL, and a cheat code ability to identify coverages described by players who have faced Tom Brady and Peyton Manning at their absolute peak as the same level. Not similar, the same. Teams have flown people 874 miles to simulate him, built entire defensive schemes to stop one thing he does, only to watch him identify that scheme before the snap and destroy it anyway. The rest of the NFL cannot copy what Baltimore is doing, because there is no other Lamar Jackson. There has never been a quarterback who combined this speed with this arm, with this mind, all 3 simultaneously at the highest level. Before the ball moves, the defense has already lost. They just don't know it yet. 29 teams passed on Lamar Jackson in the 2018 NFL Draft. They measured his arm. They timed his speed. They studied his mechanics. And every single one of them missed the same thing. The thing that cannot be measured at a combine. The thing that does not show up on a stopwatch. The ability to stand at the line of scrimmage, look at 11 defenders, and know exactly what they are about to do before they do it, before the ball moves, before the snap, before they can hide. Some quarterbacks read defenses. Lamar Jackson solves them before the play starts. every single time. Leave one word below that describes what Lamar Jackson is. Just one word. Subscribe for more NFL stories where the game reveals something bigger than football. The next one is already waiting.